incestuous because he believes that she's his mother reincarnated. And it's a really weird book, and it's one of those ones where sometimes you're like, should I be reading this? But I just love how strange it was, and it alternates between two different worlds. So him as a 15-year-old and another character as somebody who's recovering from war with an older man. So the writing really interested me, but also the way it uses music. It was actually the first book that got me interested in how you can use music in your writing. So Kafka on the Shore is the name of a poem that is set to music in the book that Miss Senko wrote for her ex-boyfriend. So that's how the title came about.
Do you mind sharing just a small section for us, please?
Okay, so I mentioned about the lead character, Kafka, who is obsessed with this woman, Miss Senko. And in this section, Oshima, who's a librarian, wakes him up one morning and tells him, I'm going to take you to the mountain, you need to leave this woman alone. And also knows, but really it becomes a conversation about what, really the trauma that Kafka is carrying, and how it's not really about her, it's about what he's longing for beyond her. What is it? I don't know what to do anymore, Kafka says. I don't even know what direction I'm facing in, what's right, what's wrong, whether I should keep on going ahead or turn around. I'm totally lost. Oshima keeps quiet, no answer forthcoming. You've got to help me. What am I supposed to do? I ask him. You don't have to do anything, he says simply. Nothing? He nods. Which is why I'm taking you to the mountains. But what should I do once I get there? Just listen to the wind, he says. That's what I always do. I'm all over this. He gently lays a hand over mine. Kafka, there are a lot of things that aren't your fault, or mine either. Not the fault of prophecies, or curses, or DNA, or absurdity. Not the fault of structuralism or the third industrial revolution. We all die and disappear, but that's because the mechanism of the world itself is built on destruction and loss. Our lives are just shadows of that guiding principle. Say the wind blows. It can be strong, violent wind or gentle breeze, but eventually every kind of wind dies out and disappears. Wind doesn't have form, it's just a movement of air. You should listen carefully and then you'll understand the metaphor. I squeeze his hand back, it's soft and warm, his smooth, sexless, delicately graceful hand. So you think it's better for me to be away from his Seki for the time being? I do, Kafka. It's the best thing right now.
Thank you. Thanks so much for that. Ease now into the second collection, and before we even start talking about the book itself, I'm really interested into the process. You know what? Can we talk about the title for me? I don't know how many, I really stand titles. If I see a really good title for a film or an album, I'm like, how did you get there? I was like, what happened? What was the thinking? How did you get there? Fun fact as well, I used to actually buy music albums based on the cover. Based on the cover and on the title. Usher's My Way, yeah? With the My Way, My Way. Do you remember? I don't know if you remember the Usher, the cover, he's kind of I think it was the navy blue, he got the hat and he got the goggles and all. I was like, nah, this is life. I was like, from that, and then I think the title was in a silver or something like that. I'm like, I don't know what you do, but I'm definitely vibing. And at those days, oh my God, I'm sounding like I'm super but no, but when you get that album cover, you get the album and it's got the lyrics in the album. Yeah. Woo! Then it goes, anyway, let me stop the noise. Title. How did you get to the title?
Gosh. Okay, so one of the central poems in the collection was a naming ceremony. Well, it wasn't a naming ceremony, but it was a naming ceremony set in the Nigerian naming ceremony, which is is done 7 days after a child is born, and you know, announcing the name of the child to family and friends. And I just love that title, and I like the idea of, because it's in some way following a character, which is, you know, part me, following a character who is understanding herself, who feels nameless, who's trying to find herself, trying to live out her name. And so I thought, okay, this is a naming ceremony for her. It's a naming ceremony for whoever is reading this, to go on their own journey of self-discovery. So the title was initially Naming Ceremony for the Nameless. And then my agent said, well, that's quite a mouthful. You know, the word naming for the nameless.
Naming ceremony
for the nameless. Yeah. And she asked me to consider it really naming because the title would work regardless, but also it opened up the book where a ceremony could be so much more, you know, because there's different kinds of ceremony. And there's other ceremonies in the book. There's a citizenship ceremony as well, this graduation ceremony. So I didn't want to, and not everyone has naming ceremonies, so I wanted a title that wasn't, that gave room for people to find themselves in it.
I'm going to go to your album, your second album and a track, then we're going to talk more on the collection. So the second album, this one's the album that gets you gassed. This is the album that kind of gets you in the morning, whether it's the gym workout or whatever it is that has you sprightly, like Monday morning, you're just like, oh, when you play this album, we're good to go. Why this album? Why this particular artist?
Okay, my choice is Asha Ken, Mr. Money with the Vibe. And yeah, the title speaks for itself.
Mr. Money.
Mr. Money with the
Your
Vibe.
title debut album, you got Mr. Money with the Vibe. You already know what's happening in this album. And from top to bottom, this album just doesn't let go. Like, you're just on a ride.
I feel like you're selling this for me.
I know, the album is here.
The album is just, and it's funny because it opens with a song called Dog.
Yeah.
And then it just picks up. But it's just one of those albums that just, it defines it. It's just, you know, there's always a song that defines summer. And this album, the whole album, it's usually like you have, you know, one song from an album and that's the song everyone's playing, but it's different songs. The album has Terminator, Organized, Joker, Doll, Nzanza, Simone, like so many songs. But what I love is, and not a lot of artists doing this. I mean, you have Afrobeat, but he was doing something different, right? He fuses Fuji music with pop, and you don't really see Fuji in the mainstream that way. So I just love that he was authentically himself, and he was using, like, you know, Nigerian slangs, pidgin, all of these things, and yeah, I just love the album, and there's just quite a mix as well in terms of the songs. But you also have songs that feel like gospel calls, that feel like spiritual reckonings as well, and there's humor in it. So in Peace Be Unto You, the sample at the beginning where it's a woman saying, "Help me, help me." So I just love the whole album. It just takes you on the journey, and the way he's just authentically himself. And the song that I love the most there is Joha. Probably because my wedding was a song that the groomsmen danced into, so it has a special
So would you like to introduce the artist and the song, and Con can take it from there?
Amazing. So Ashake Joha.
hesitation or any of those things? Yeah? Wicked is a general thought. So we're just talking about now, like, how do you deal with nerves?
I don't. No, how I deal with nerves, maybe I'm a bit dramatic, but generally, I always pray before anything I do. I always remind myself of why I'm doing it in the first place, the love of what I do, and also that, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's just like, you know, it is what it is. That's what it is.
So I'm reading your book, yeah? Ceremony for Nameless. And there was one time when me and my mum got our citizenship to be in this country. And then, like, I'm there with mum, we're just chilling, waiting for it. We see people posting next to, like, you know, the Queen and stuff and blah, 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 blah. And then when that finished, then the person was just like, now that you're citizens, you can explore Britain. Like, me and mum haven't been here for time. We're like, if you fancy some fish and chips. Yo, if you fancy some fish and chips, you can go to Brighton to get some fish and chips. If you feel like you want to party or dance, because it was in South, you can go to Ministry of Sound. Wow. No, I was already. Do you know what I mean? I just had to sit through. And I looked at my mum. I said, "Mommy, you want to get some fish and chips?" She said, "No, I want to pound it down." But it was just, you know what it is? It was the way that they were just talking to us that felt so mad, patronizing, and there were some folks I was just like, go to Brighton tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? There were folks I was like super excited, but I was just like, the way, even in doing the, I don't know, like in doing the citizen test or whatever it is, you're going to have to now press a button to know how to, before you cross the road, what do you do? Do you A, walk across? Do you B, press the traffic light? Bro, this is what me and mum were looking at each other just like, no, this is like nonsense. And it costs crazy money. And if you're not accepted, that money is not refundable, then you have to now find another way to get that money. And it's gone up since. I say this to say, when I'm now reading the book, and there's a section in there that kind of covers and looks over this. It's those things that makes me feel seen, because it speaks to an experience. And there are some amazing people in this audience who create work for us to be seen. When we can be one of them right here. You got yourself one time for a one time. And it's important work that is needed, because it then makes it, I'm not alone. So in order for someone to create that piece of work, it just makes me feel like I'm not alone, that this is something else, that it's a collective thing that we feel. And I think I really get that from this current collection. Was that in your mind when you were writing these different stories, these different things to touch on and experiences?
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, Yomi. I think that some of the first works I fell in love with were things that described experiences I never experienced. The first poem I fell in love with was one I heard when I went to Lagos Poetry Festival as part of a school trip in Nigeria. I was 12 at the time, and it was a poem about the Bellevue plane crash, which was an unfortunate incident. At that time, I'd never been on a plane before, I'd never travelled. But that poem, it was just an emotional capsule, and it just hit me. And I mentioned the suitcase kid. I hadn't had that experience with divorced parents. And so when I started writing, I always knew that whatever I write, as long as it's good, as long as it's emotive, people would connect with it. It's not about trying to... I write to be seen, yes, but I think falling in love with this words gave me the confidence to write about things and knowing that people anywhere in the world will still be able to connect with them. So that kind of gave me the freedom to write about individual experiences. And I tried to write about things that are not me, and I didn't have fun with it. I you're eventually stuck because you're not able to, there's not much you're only at the surface, there's not much you can dig in, but also you don't have to interrogate yourself when you write about things that you don't understand. So writing about these experiences, I get to ask myself questions, I get to be a reliable narrator, I get to, play out different characters, answer questions that are unanswerable. So for me, that is where I'm most comfortable, but also uncomfortable. So that's my only source of inspiration. It's my experience, my life.
Once, come November 7th, it is out of your hands. It goes out to the masses. Would you mind talking about that feeling in terms of just like, it's been building for so long, and then come this day, even if doing the rounds now, because folks are going to be having it to review or what have you, blah, 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 but slowly it's going out there. How are you feeling right now in the process of the second book coming out?
Strange. I was saying earlier to someone that I'm only just letting go of the book, because we live with, it's not just the writing of the book, it's the life around the writing of the book that you remember. And I know the time I was writing the book because I was going to quit poetry at the time I was writing it. So it's like, I know. Like, self-help music. So I was holding the book like, wow, you wouldn't have existed if I had made that decision. But also, writing is just such a private and personal act. But I remember that this is what writing is for. Without readers, without audiences, it would just be a diary entry. And so I'm excited. It's like, we always nervous, talk about nerves, but it's because it means something to you, and we're sensitive beings. Humans are sensitive. You care if you claim you don't care. But I'm also excited for it to find the right audiences that will be moved by it. That's what matters.
That's also my answer. I'm ready. The second book will be tonight. I know we're gonna, hopefully, if you feel we're going to share some poems with it, which I hope you do. We'll get to that in a bit. But the second book of First Five tonight as well is right there. And I know that cover, boy. I've seen that cover.
I know.
Would you mind sharing with us your second book collection where I can hold that up?
Yes, of course. It's The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. Absolutely.
Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. Gorgeous book. Would you like to say about the book?
It's just, where do I start? About beauty, the ways in which we feel ugly, and how hatred gets hatred. How, I think I'm just drawn to how we live out our childhood traumas. I realize that that's a pattern, but it's the same thing here. It follows different families. So we see Pauline, Cholly, Sam, Pacola. We see this different, and usually with novels, with fiction now, you're told, don't tell us the backstory of a character if we're not going to come back again. But I love that she takes the time. Even characters that only come in one chapter, she gives them that dignity and talks about their lives and shows you how it relates to another. But yeah, it's just beautifully written, and it's about a girl who prays to have blue eyes every night, and the ways in just which, and there's a part where there's a mixed girl that's joining a school, and the two young girls want to make her feel ugly the way they feel ugly. And it just gets that hatred begets hatred, and she writes so beautifully that part, which is what I'm going to read, but yeah, it's just been brilliant.
Would you mind to share the section, please?
So,
everybody good, by the way? Everyone alright?
yeah.
Awesome. Go to the midway checks. You know what I mean? Awesome.
Alright, so mixed girl has joined their school. Her name is Maureen, and I remember reading this part and thinking, oh gosh, like this is, when it comes to names, I feel like this book is enough. I don't even say really good Davis. It's just, yeah, Toni Morrison. Okay. Frida and I were bemused, irritated, and fascinated by her. We looked hard for flaws to restore our equilibrium, changing Maureen pill to meringue pie. Later, a minor epiphany was ours when we discovered that she had a dog too, a charming one to be sure, but a dog too nonetheless. And when we found out that she had been born with 6 fingers on each hand, and that there was a little bump where each extra one had been removed, we smiled. It was small triumphs, but we took what we could get, snickering behind her back and calling her 6-finger dog-tooth meringue pie. All we had to do with it alone, for none of the other girls would cooperate with our hostility. They adored her. There's another part I want to read. Okay, I can't find it for now, so I'll stick with that for now. There was something else I wanted to read, but it was essentially her saying that because she wasn't ugly, they had to ugly her name as a first way to make her feel ugly.
Make some noise for Toni Morris. So this is a question I tend to ask the majority of guests on First Five. And it's around when things are, when it gets a bit hard and things get a bit difficult. Because as artists, as you know, there's peaks and troughs, man. There's like one point, your name is there, everything is there, boom, 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 and then there's like almost like a lull, and then you're trying to figure things out, you're trying to work it out, and it's those periods where things get tricky, especially if you work, if you're a full-time writer, and then you're working, you do it, you're thinking the invoice is going to come in within 30 days, boy. Do you know what the invoice took, like 11 months?
Oh,
to come through on my side. I mean, what was your record? What was yours?
Probably wasn't that long, but mine was like 4 months.
4 months. Mine was 11 months. I said, do you know, like we're like 1 more month since a year since this thing happened. Not just me, but other people as well. And I say this to say, even you can't predict those moments, but you still have to figure something out in between that to make it work. And it's not every day that this is like an easy ride. When things get tough for you on your side, how do you kind of like look for the light? How do you kind of find a route? Because I don't know, there's probably many folks here in different forms of work and arts and occupations, and they might go through similar things also. So it might be helpful to a certain degree to know on your side how you go over that one. What is that like for you?
Well, I mentioned earlier that I never quit poetry.
Yeah.
For me, family and friends have made the biggest difference. So people who knew me when I started, but also knew the version of me before I was even doing this, and so know the difference it's made in my life. And people that challenge me as well. So sometimes you need someone to just say, like, wake up, like, stop moaning. Sometimes you need that tough love, and so for me it's been my mother and my husband, those two people that do that, people that challenge me. So, my husband will say, okay, maybe you're just bored of this, you need to go higher, you need to do more, you need to challenge yourself, you need to try something different. Go back to your roots, go back, so even like, doing the Royal or Hall, that's something that otherwise...
Wait, what? Sorry, how did you just casually just say, if you didn't catch that situation, we're like, doing the... Yeah. So, no, we have to celebrate the moment. So, Theresa was the lineup of a long, various poets at the Royal Hall, and it was incredible. Can we acknowledge that? Can we just make some noise? Sorry to interject. You may carry on.
Thank you. But yeah, that just challenging you. So with that, going back to what I mentioned, I came in with slam. So yeah, just challenging me to do something different. But also those that understand the realities of your circumstances and I believe in tangible support, so not just, oh, it'll be okay, like that can only last for so long, but people who can tangibly support you with opportunities, financially, with advice, with, you know, connections. And I was very fortunate that I really met people in that line. So Bendina Barista, eternally grateful to her. She was someone that opened the doors to me. And I also learned to ask as well. So those times do come. I feel like it's just the nature of the arts. But the people around you make the difference. And that was the case for me.
And leading neatly into your inspirational figure, would you mind just sharing who the inspirational figure is and why?
So I think someone who, I don't know if anyone would know of her, maybe one or two people. What, Professor Molara Ogundipe? Has anyone ever heard of her before? Of course we've heard of her. But she sadly passed away in 2019, but she was a poet, feminist, a critic, an editor, lecturer, so many things in one. And I didn't actually know her until years ago when I was, at the time, it didn't come out, but I was trying to make a documentary of Nigerian female poets, the pioneer, because I went to Nigeria in 2017, and I thought, oh, this opportunity to know the people that came before me and really understand Nigerian poetry. I met her and she was in her 70s at the time. She was the first woman to graduate with a first-class degree in English at the University of Ibadan at the time. And I met her, she was in her 70s, went to Ibadan to see her, and she was still driving. She was like so bad, It's like she drove us around Ibadan and she was lecturing at Macpherson University. And we had a conversation. I interviewed her about her start in poetry. And this is someone who is kind of obscure in the literary landscape, and she was talking about the struggles of women, Nigerian female poets at the time, because everyone was looking to Chinua and Wole Soyinka. And if you weren't writing like them, no one was really looking to your work. And she actually gave her manuscript to a popular Nigerian writer who I would name, and he didn't publish her work, and he took a female editor being employed to get her work published. And I believe she's the first Nigerian woman to have her poetry collection published in the UK. And sadly, a lot of those publishers, closed up, works not available, so you could only get it in the British Library, and I think I bought probably the last copy available. But she was talking about how she's intentional when she's lecturing to include female writers, female African writers, and it's people like her doing the work. And her passion just never dimmed, and she just knew her worth, and just seeing the way she carried herself for me, outside her work, the way she carried herself till her death, that was something that I was like, that's what I want. I want to be that gracious. And to others as well. So yeah, she for me is just that person. And I have a poem actually dedicated to her in my collection, because I just had to put her name in there for other people to discover her work.
You're doing this job for me in a nice segue style. Because before we get to your guilty pleasure, it will be awesome if potentially you can share a poem from this upcoming second collection of yours. This is like an exclusive, which I enjoy. I love this life. Folks, there are QR codes to pre-order Ceremony for the Nameless. So when we're wrapped, please do scan this and order yourself a copy, and it will be making its way to you on the day of publication. Is that alright? Is that cool? While you actually have a look through to see...
I wanted things to pick. I had two that I couldn't pick.
Right, while you do that, talk amongst yourselves in terms of like, what book of your shelf do you return to? Yeah, let's do that for like a minute. What book? Like, someone on there, turn someone, I don't know. Don't cheat though. I think it would be nice if you look at someone's opposite. Look to someone's opposite that you didn't come with, and then break into like new conversations. What book off the shelf do you like? What book off the shelf?
I was just saying, it's embarrassed that we read anymore.
Yeah, I know, I can't take that really.